The year is 2015. Deep beneath the streets of New York City, engineers are staring at a problem that should not exist. The project is called East Side Access. On paper, it is straightforward. Connect the Long Island Railroad to Grand Central Terminal. No new continent-spanning network, no revolutionary technology, just a rail connection into one of the world's largest cities. Yet the cost has climbed toward $11 billion. Across the Atlantic, something strange is happening. In Paris, Madrid, Copenhagen, and Milan, entire subway lines are being planned, tunneled, and completed for a fraction of the cost. Stations are built faster. Track is laid faster. Projects open sooner. The numbers don't make sense. 1 mile of urban rail in America often costs several times more than a comparable mile in Europe or Asia. Sometimes the difference isn't 20% or 50%. Sometimes it is 3 times, 5 times, even 10 times higher. Politicians blame regulations. Contractors blame labor. Labor blames consultants. Consultants blame politicians. Everyone points somewhere else. Meanwhile, taxpayers watch billions disappear into projects that take decades to complete. The question becomes impossible to ignore. Why does a subway tunnel cost one price in Madrid and another in Manhattan? Why can countries with similar wages, similar technology, and similar safety standards build infrastructure so much more cheaply? And perhaps most importantly, what happens to an economy when the cost of building its future becomes so high that building almost anything becomes impossible? This is not merely a story about trains. It is a story about incentives, institutions, bureaucracy, finance, and political risk. Because the greatest infrastructure challenge in America is not engineering, it is the cost of engineering. To understand the divide, we have to begin with a promise. Infrastructure is viewed as civilization's ultimate multiplier. A bridge shortens travel time. Shorter travel time increases commerce. Commerce increases productivity. Productivity increases wealth. America understands this principle. The Transcontinental Railroad helped unify a continent. The interstate highway system transformed logistics. The assumption is that governments can reliably convert financial resources into physical assets. Money goes in, infrastructure comes out. For much of the 20th century, America is viewed as one of the world's most capable infrastructure builders. Then something changes. Projects begin taking longer. Approval processes become more complicated. Construction management becomes more fragmented. Imagine a simple tunnel project. An engineer designs it, a contractor builds it, the public pays for it. That is the simplified version. The modern reality looks very different. Before construction begins, environmental reviews must be completed, permits must be secured, stakeholders must be consulted, property rights must be negotiated, risk assessments must be prepared, legal reviews must be conducted. Every additional step exists for a reason. Most are created to solve legitimate problems. But every layer also introduces time, and time is expensive. The systems created to improve accountability often make projects dramatically more expensive. The systems created to reduce risk can create new forms of risk. Consider what happens when a major transit project is announced. The public often imagines a giant pile of cash waiting to be spent. Infrastructure financing rarely works that way. Large projects typically depend on multi-year funding streams. Money arrives in stages, budgets are approved incrementally, political commitments stretch across election cycles. This creates uncertainty, and uncertainty has a cost. No one wants to be blamed for failure. Everyone wants protection from liability. Everyone wants contingency budgets. Everyone wants additional reviews. The engineering does not explain the difference. The wages do not fully explain it. Something deeper is happening. The problem is not always what gets built. The problem is how building gets organized. Let's draw the plumbing of a modern transit project. Step 1. A government identifies a transportation need. Political leaders announce the project. Lower projected costs improve political viability. Then planning begins, and years pass. Unexpected complications emerge. Utility relocations, legal disputes, geological surprises, additional delays, additional expenses. Most cost growth occurs before the first train ever moves. Time becomes the hidden tax. The Second Avenue Subway Phase 1 costs billions for just a few stations. Critics blame labor, but the reality is more complicated. Spain becomes a revealing example. They build thousands of kilometers of track significantly cheaper than American efforts. The difference lies in institutions. Project delivery is standardized. Engineering expertise remains concentrated within organizations. Think of it like manufacturing. A factory producing 1 car every 10 years will be inefficient. A factory producing thousands develops expertise. America often relearns the same lessons repeatedly. Teams disband, knowledge dissipates, institutional memory weakens. The rising cost of infrastructure is beginning to affect national strategy. When every mile costs more, fewer miles are built. The visible project gets built. The invisible projects never exist, and that may be the most expensive cost of all. The answer begins to emerge through modern crises that expose just how fragile the infrastructure machine has become. The warning signs become impossible to ignore during the 2020s. Across America, policymakers are suddenly confronted with a challenge that cannot be postponed. Bridges are aging, transit systems require modernization, electric grids need expansion, ports face capacity constraints, housing shortages are intensifying, new manufacturing facilities require supporting infrastructure. At the same time, geopolitical competition is returning. Governments around the world are investing heavily in transportation networks, industrial capacity, renewable energy systems, and strategic supply chains. Infrastructure is no longer merely a domestic issue. It is becoming a competitive issue. The countries that can build quickly gain economic flexibility. The realization that the ability to build has become a strategic asset. The infrastructure divide becomes a national economic question. Can America still build at the scale its future requires? Investigators begin examining the hidden machinery behind modern infrastructure delivery. Consider how a major rail project might proceed in a country with centralized authority. A national transportation agency identifies a need. Planning occurs within a unified framework. Approvals move through a predictable hierarchy. Knowledge from previous projects is retained. Now compare that with many American projects. Federal, state, regional, and local agencies are all involved. Independent authorities are involved. Consultants, law firms, and contractors coordinate between them. Every handoff introduces friction. Every interface creates opportunities for delay. Imagine building a house where every room requires approval from a different committee. The cumulative effect becomes overwhelming. This phenomenon is transaction costs. Managing the relationships around construction becomes a project in itself. Researchers repeatedly encounter another factor: consultant dependence. In many countries, public agencies maintain large internal engineering capabilities. In contrast, many American agencies rely on external consultants. Knowledge often leaves when contracts end. Compounding knowledge is a powerful cost reduction tool. A country that repeatedly rents expertise may struggle to compound expertise. Then there is procurement. If contractors fear unexpected liabilities, they increase bids. The desire to eliminate risk often generates additional expense. Environmental review protects ecosystems. Yet the objective of review is informed decision-making, not endless decision-making. Uncertainty appears as cost. The true cost resides in the systems surrounding the concrete and steel. Consider housing shortages and how transit expansion affects labor markets. How efficiently can a society convert resources into reality? This is a question of state capacity. Can money become infrastructure? Whenever a new proposal appears, ask 5 questions: coordination, experience risk, approval time, and knowledge transfer. Infrastructure is the physical expression of institutional competence. That is why costs vary so radically. The future will demand more. The societies that thrive will be those that can most effectively convert resources into results. The ability to build is national power.